I'm glad to have everybody still joining us after a massive day of panels, presentations, and networking, of course. So we are at the penultimate stage and the penultimate panel for the day. I'm happy to be joined by Fred Koplow, Howard Rosen, and Justin Bulova. We're going to be talking about the innovation collaborations, the future of digital health, and a bit of a sprinkling of the multiverse. So first of all, I think it would be lovely for us to get to know who is on our panel. So if we want to do a quick whip round of introductions, starting with you, Fred, since you are on the far left.
Well, great. I love being on the left, but thanks everybody. And thanks for last minute join. But yeah, again, my name is Fred Koplow. I am the Vice President of Payer, Providers, and Health Plan Partnerships, a mouthful for better healthcare. But been around health for quite a while, started transforming Blue Cross 10 years ago digitally with a little, Salesforce and a little bit of patient portals. And, through all that time, I think what's old is new again. And maybe Howard will chime in, but I work today connecting patients into care with providers. It seems to be the missing link. They talk about the digital front door and the doorstep being broken. I personally feel it's locked. So I look forward to comparing notes, but that's what I spend my day to day, try to help us all get into care.
Good. Fantastic. Thanks, Fred. Howard?
Yeah, sounds like we just let Fred go and I don't have to say anything tonight. So I'm Howard Rosen. I'm CEO of Nova Insights. I wish I looked as good as a gentleman whose picture is on the screen, but sadly I don't, but we'll go with that one going forward. Very quickly, by education, I have an MBA, International Finance and Marketing, trained to run a Fortune 500 company. I have to admit, I didn't attend all my classes, didn't realize you don't go straight from graduation to running a Fortune 500. So naturally, with that background, I actually spent 20 years producing film and television, which was a natural segue in health IT. When about 15 years ago, I came across the idea, actually, as Fred was suggesting, about the need for better engaging patients. And I thought, well, maybe there's a way of using cell phones to better engage patients. And that led to an invention of what became the LifeWire communication platform, which is patient engagement and provider engagement. I built and ran the company for 15 years. And this fall, for a number of reasons, I think COVID and just being exhausted is part of it, I stepped down from the day-to-day, and now I'm consulting and sort of combining both worlds and working with companies in innovation in the world of digital transformation.
Fantastic. And thank you also, Howard, for participating in the Innovator Showcase earlier and lending us your insights and questions.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And last but not least, of course, those of you who have followed HITLAB events before may recognize the person on the right, Justin Bulova. If you want to give the crowd a 60-second background on yourself.
Thanks so much, Jerry. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be back. As Jerry mentioned, prior to my time at BioReference Laboratories, I was the head of marketing at HITLAB for 2 years, and it's great to be back here with Dr. Gachinowski and this distinguished panel. Now I'm a marketing strategist, primarily working on Scarlet Health over at BioReference Laboratories. It is a division of BioReference. Scarlet is an on-demand specimen collection service that delivers the specimen to BioReference Laboratories for testing. We hope that it reduces barriers to care and allows more people to complete laboratory test orders. Ultimately, the Scarlet appointment happens at a patient's home or place of employment. And it's really helpful for people who physically can't leave or immunocompromised or simply are busy. And it's taking the time out of their busy lives to go ahead and get that lab order filled. And we're pleased to share that Scarlet Health serves nearly 95% of the country.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Justin. And I guess we should get going with looking at the future, of what digital health is going to be. We've talked a lot about, I think, the upcoming innovations and stuff like that. But I think, Fred, you brought up something very, prevalent here about, patients getting the actual access to the care. So it would be great to, I think, start off maybe with you, Fred, talking about that access and what that looks like, with digital health in the future.
Sure, great. No, I appreciate it. Well, it's kind of what I play with every day. I think with I listened earlier to Dr. Varden and Dr. Rachel George, and they were both from Salesforce, and what he was talking about, health by the numbers. And you look back 9 years ago when a lot of the payers, as part of one, our data was a mess in not one place, and we did realign all that to have engagement, so we could actually understand what was going on and not to sell them more and manage. But all of the work was done. It wasn't just the blues, so that's part of, but the Mayos and the Cleveland clinics, we were all in the same boat at the same time, and you kind of evolving and learning from each other. But here we are, almost 9.5 years later, and patients, I feel, are the ones that have gotten left, off the ship. They are having a heck of a time connecting to providers. It seems pretty simple, but I know, way back when, it wasn't that long ago, that the only kind of moving part was do not mess up the call center. We do not want more call center volume at $12 an average call, which is still relevant today, especially with COVID. And it seems we didn't touch it. We put a lot of tools in place. We know exactly what members are doing, across the board. And I've worked with a lot of plans, but we can't connect to care. And after COVID, none of us want to call and be 12th in line. And with all the technology out there, you look at the ZocDocs of the world and the Kairos after they acquired, the company we had at HealthSpark, all these companies put in place. But I can tell you, most of the payers still can't connect. Log into your patient portal, which none of us want to do. And it's not even the Epics and the Cerner's fault. They're just too big. They're out of their swim lanes, my opinion. So, my day.
I think you're on mute, Fred.
Yeah, Fred, I think you put yourself on mute.
Fred, you hit your mute button.
Fred, I think you need to unmute yourself, buddy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, he's still muted.
Oh, that's strange. Fred, can you try something? I think
we lost.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's okay to sort of build on what Fred was saying. It's almost like past his prologue in terms of the whole idea of, in terms of patient, in terms of engagement, and a lot of digital solutions, and top of the transformation. As Fred knows, and Justin, I know, and Jared, you've all seen, is part of the problem is a lot of these digital tools, really phenomenal. I'm going back 15 years to today, really phenomenal tools, but on average, and this is like as McKinsey came out, on average, you're looking at a success rate of around 11% of all these digital transformations. Fundamentally, the problem is, and having been a vendor on that side, so actually, consultants have seen both sides, fundamentally, the problem is no one's talking to the patients. They're sort of going, the patients are after the fact and going, oh, we got the solution, we're going to push it down. So it's almost like they're bolting on solutions and saying, okay, here's the patients. And similarly, they're not talking with the internal stakeholders or the internal commercial customers really about the providers, the clinicians, the nurses, the lab techs who have to use these solutions. They're the afterthought to all these ideas. And the reality is the future, I think, to the theme of collaboration, the reality is you're going to have collaboration amongst all these teams at the earliest possible stages to make sure it's actually providing what each one wants and the value that each one needs for these things to be effective, and to bring them on. And as to Fred's point, to actually engage the patients in terms of you actually have a true digital front door that people are going to use, because it actually is providing them what they want and solving the problems that they have. I could do days on that, but I'll leave it to Justin to continue.
No, Howard, I think you bring up some really great points. I think ultimately the digital front door is causing a lot of friction in the user and the patient experience. I think ultimately what we need to do is really make the patient experience as seamless as possible. And to Fred's point, that means greater access to not just healthcare providers, but in our case, to the diagnostics of it. I mean, we already know that 30% of lab orders from providers going unfilled. Now, with the rise of telemedicine over the last few years, that number has risen to 50% of telemedicine lab orders going unfilled. That is a fundamental part of the diagnostic process that is just simply not happening. And it's happening because people are either, they don't have the time to go to the waiting room, they're too busy with their lives, they're immunocompromised, they don't want to be in a position where they're around these other airborne illnesses and things like that, especially with COVID going around right now. Ultimately, what we're hoping to do is we're looking to bridge that gap. And by making diagnostics more accessible, we plan to ultimately bridge that gap in care and hopefully make it a seamless digital process for both the patient and the provider and all the key stakeholders that Howard mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, no, that's a really good point, Justin. Thanks for kind of adding, that on top of kind of what Fred and Howard started off with. Actually, kind of building, I suppose, on collaboration, and since we only have like a minute or two to get to the close, it'd be great to just get a quick 60-second outlook from all three of you as to where where you think collaborations in innovations are going to be, this time in a couple of years, into the future, and also maybe what the metaverse kind of looks like in terms of the part it's going to play with digital health.
Well, certainly just to jump in terms of, as we sort of talked about, the future is going to require collaboration for all these tools to work, for all these pieces to work. You can't just have them say, just use it. You're going to have the collaboration, and you're hearing, like at Stanford, they're talking about patient participation in the clinical side. Like, you need to involve the people who are going to be the beneficiaries of the result of it all, have to be part of the process. And those who are part of the workflows have to be part of the process. And everything's been built in silos for the most part. And I think the future, just because of necessity, is going to have much more collaboration amongst all these parties and the stakeholders, because it has to. Otherwise, it's still going to be, everything's going to end up in the digital dustbin, as I referenced recently. In terms of the metaverse, and we talked about this earlier, great marketing concept. I'm old enough to survive Second Life in the late '90s, and I think there's a lot of elements to it. But right now, to me, it's a marketing piece as opposed to any practical pieces, elements to it. I'm looking forward to seeing how it can work, but I certainly haven't seen it in its early days.
Yeah. No, thanks. Justin, I'll chop into, I just look at some statistics. Here we are stand today. 22 years ago is when we all got exposed to mobility and texting with a little stupid show called American Idol. No kidding. And they taught the US, and I was, you look at it, that we all started voting and we were in flip phones, and I am old enough, but that was 22 years ago. Hasn't been that long. And then you look at the statistics, what happened with Amazon. We went from books to everything else. So we all come home as consumers at night. And really, that's really, I feel we are consumers in healthcare. We come home at night, and 54% book their appointments, make a request at night when they're home. And in our city, we've been servicing 3,000 PT clinics. That's where our business started. And I talked to all the payers and providers, just getting connected. But I really feel that we're going to become a transactional, like in Amazon. We come home at night. That's really what healthcare has to become. And to Howard's point, yeah, I agree. The metaverse, I think there's a lot of really great stuff, AI, AR, but you know what? Everyone's still calling the call centers. Yeah, and that's a lot of human intervention and training, and a lot of money on the marketing side that payers don't have to spend to retrain. Yet we all have cell phones in our hands. So I don't know, I'm hopeful, but I agree with Howard. I don't think we've even gotten Salesforce's Health Cloud figured out yet. And I was one of the first movers 9 years ago, to be honest with you. Spent a lot of money. So I'll pause, over to you, Justin. That's my 50 cents.
No, yeah, I agree with you here. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think, we all know that social media is a huge place for misinformation, and we need to be careful about it. But patients are now consumers. They're becoming more educated about their choices. And ultimately, this is going to be one of those means to connect with your patients as a provider, as a brand even. But ultimately, right. I think it's important that we remember that patient privacy is our foremost concern, and that whatever we're doing with the metaverse, we need to be doing it with patient safety and patient privacy in mind. Yep. I think Jerry said this is going to be our wrap. So I'm just going to leave us on one last note on collaboration. Ultimately, collaboration for us at Scarlet Health, it means tying together the care continuum and closing that last medical mile. For us, that means that the medical or the telemedicine encounter, the labs, the pharmacy, the payer, access really equals meeting patients where they are, regardless of socioeconomic status, where they live, their ability to pay, and their health literacy. And that's what Scarlet does. We put increasing health equity and access at the forefront of everything we do. I'll hand it over to you, Howard and Fred, but if you guys want more information, definitely check out scarlethealth.com.
No, that's awesome. I think the only thing, you're right, and Jerry's trying to yank us off here, but Howard, I hope you agree. It's been written the last, in Forbes and the Wall Street Journal, and you read in the business sections, it's all about partnerships everywhere way around. Payers need the partnerships. They can't do it by themselves. They don't have the IT departments. When I was outside, we're all trying to sell in. It's going to have to be collaborative. And I think the best examples, look what the telehealth companies, the big guys started with when they were first movers. It wasn't that long ago when Roy at Amwell and, Sean at Omada and all came knocking, and Glenn Tolman at Livongo before he was acquired, and Jason at Teladoc. It's all worked out. So I don't know. It has to occur like this, but I appreciate it. Jerry, this was great. I appreciate the last minute invite. And Howard, Justin, it's a pleasure.
No, it was a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for sharing your insights, albeit very short. We do have to we do have to put a pin in it there, and maybe do a part 2 at some point this year, maybe in person.
That'd be great.
And yeah, it's always great to have you guys on. So thank you very much, guys, for sharing your insights and kind of rounding off the summit. And look forward to having you all on again.
Great. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks,
Thanks
Howard.
for inviting us.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Nice. I'll see you later.
Everybody.